Yeah, I know, I'm not talking to you about cars this day. I'm going to be talking to you about trees, another passion of mine. Specifically, making maple syrup, because maple syrup is freaking delicious. And while it is labor intensive, it's really not that hard. And it's something you can do at home, assuming you've got maple trees, of course. And fall colors are just the best. They really are. Different phases of red maples and yellows to oranges, reds, greens. It's lovely. Nerd out on you some more. Here we've got sassafras, big old sassafras leaves. And this is actually a silver maple. They look similar to a sugar maple or a red maple, but you see how each lobe is a lot thinner, kind of here in the base where each lobe meets in the middle. So we'll take this as an example and compare it against a red maple. And here we've got us another red maple. So here's our silver maple, and here's a red maple leaf, and doing a quick comparison. So here we have a silver maple, which as you can see is kind of thinner at the base of each of the three main kind of branches coming off of it. A red maple, which is sort of bigger, and it's got these little serrations around the outside of the leaf. And then a sugar maple, which is just smooth along all these edges. See, there's no serration here. Serration, a little bit of serration, but as compared to the red maple, you see how there's a lot of more separation between the lobes, and it's thinner. It's also a bit more silvery in color on the bottom as compared to the rest of them. And that's why they call that one a silver maple. Your red maple gets you good maple sugar content, so does the silver. And your sugar maple, based on the name, is actually the one with the highest content. And there's your leaves. And back over here at the silver maple, if you're trying to do it by comparing bark, at least for me as a maybe untrained eye, it's kind of impossible, because look, it's still sort of got the same typical maple characteristics, the kind of scales, the silvery brownish colors throughout, and then it's smoother maybe up towards the top. Then over here at this red maple, kind of the same thing. Scaly, some smoothness, even different parts. This is the main part of this tree. You've got this guy that stays really scaly, and this one that gets smooth. It's just kind of hard to tell through the bark, so you really need to look at the leaves to be able to tell the difference, at least for me. This guy here also is a red maple, and you see the large base of this tree. If I don't die first. Another way that you can look at a red maple and tell it is one without the leaves on it is that they have alternating, or I should say opposing branches. So for example, this branch here, you see how you've got the main stem in the middle and then the two arms that grow out completely opposite of each other. Maple trees grow that way, along with a couple other type of deciduous trees. So you might be wondering, Frank, what are you doing out here in the woods? Well, duh, I'm marking all my maple trees, getting ready for next year. Come springtime, around March, April, start getting a little bit of sap flow here in the trees. So I've gone around the trees and measured their circumference, and just divide by pi, 3.14, so a 34-inch tree gives you about a 11-inch diameter. And you need about 10 inches on a tree, measured 4 feet from the ground, to be able to tap it. And of course, it's got to be the right kind of tree. So this is a red maple, and what's interesting is you can see the bark in areas is very flat and plain, and then it gets kind of groovy. Whereas this one here is extremely groovy and flaky looking. But as you look up, red maple leaves there, and red maple leaves there. So here you go, measured 4 feet from the ground, 51 inches in circumference. It maths out to be about a 16 inch tree in diameter, and it's still only big enough for one tap. So you're supposed to have, I think, like a 20-inch tree to go for two. So we're just gonna mark this guy off here with some of our awesome hot rod tape and write on it how many taps we can put in, and then when it comes time, the early spring, we'll know how much to tap it for. This tree here, red maple. That tree there is also red maple, as is this one. This guy out here, beautiful example of some red maple leaves. And this tree you can only tap and get one tap in it. But I was able to produce about a gallon a day in a single tap tree like that last year. It's pretty cool. It's that time of year again. Time to tap the trees. It's the end of February. We're getting days now where it's above freezing during the day, below freezing at night, which is perfect conditions. Those maple trees start pumping all that beautiful sap inside, getting those juices flowing. You see some buds already starting to initiate, getting ready for springtime, but right now is the perfect time. These trees are starting to get all that sap running through them, and we can run our taps. And if you remember earlier, last fall, already came through and marked these trees, designated which ones are our maple trees. You can see by the yellow tape I put around them. So let's go ahead and drill our first tap holes. Right here you can see where I actually drilled my tap hole on this tree from last year and how the tree healed itself up. So when you remove these taps, always remember, you just leave the hole bare and don't fill it, don't touch it, just the tree's gonna heal itself. That being said, we don't wanna drill a hole right next to the one we did last year, so we're gonna come to the other side of the tree and we're gonna go right over here. Usually the spot where it's getting some sunlight is good, and we want to drill on an upward angle into the tree, but not so far in that we're actually going to damage the tree. So you kind of get through this first little layer here. It's a little tough to go, and then we kind of get into the inner part of the tree. You'll see it get a little bit softer. You can actually already see a little bit of sap is already developing down there. And there it is. So this tree is ready to get tapped. So now we will place our tap in the hole. And connect it here into the bottle. And this is just going to collect. Now making sure to come out here and check on it every day. And this stuff has to stay below, I think, 40 degrees. So you can't really store it for too long. It only lasts about a week, I think. Pretty much once you kind of get yourself a couple gallons made up, about 5 gallons will produce you one pint mason jar size, and then you're going to want to get that all boiled up and done. Here's our second tree, which is tapped. So we're going in about an inch and a half, and you can see it's already dripping out pretty nicely. This tree here and the other one that we just tapped, this thing it's been 24 hours and look what we got already. Entirely full gallon right there. This one is nearly full. This guy over here too, nearly full. I can see that one's about half. And this one on the left, nearly full. And this one here is full to the gills. So these trees are producing well. There's still another 2 or 3 trees out that way. And now all I gotta do is collect all of it and then get this stuff boiled up. So I got my turkey fryer, which will get hooked up to the propane, and this will burn underneath a nice flame and just have this boiling outside, because you don't want to boil all this stuff in the house. It's going to get all steamy. It's going to take a few hours for this stuff to boil down. So you get to about a gallon remaining, then I'll take it inside and boil it on the stovetop and then watch the end of it. But for now, let's go collect what we've got. So I just popped the hose out of the bottle, hang on to it, in the mouth, of course, and then I grab here and now collect it all. First 6 trees and already full to the top, 5 gallons. That's awesome. There it is. So I would say we've got 5 here and probably 2.5 gallons, so about 7.5 gallons. And the first day of collecting, it is February 23rd, 2020, and that's not too bad. Now it's probably going to take a good 4 hours or so for these 5 gallons to boil down, and we'll get started. Like I said, this turkey fryer was very inexpensive. I got it from Walmart. Just connected to the same propane tank you'd use on a barbecue. And got a little timer here on the bottom, which once it runs out after like 10 minutes, it shuts it off. So I tape it to keep it fully on, but just be aware of that. I'm gonna hit this little button here. The propane's gonna come out and we're gonna hit it with the torch. Couldn't film and do it at the same time, but once you get it lit, let it run for about 5 seconds, holding down on this little button here, then let off, and now it's going. So I'm gonna turn this flame down a little bit. This is the regulator here. Bring it over here to a spot out of the wind. Get our pot up there, and now let's get this beautiful sap in there. There we go. Now this is just gonna boil for hours. Just letting it boil all the way down so about a gallon remains. And then the magic happens. All right, now I've got it filled up, and this is just gonna take a while to get hot and boiling. I'm gonna turn this heat up a little bit, and that's it. Just walk away, check back on it every now and then. Now we want to preserve our remaining sap. You gotta keep it below 40 degrees so it doesn't go bad. So I'm just gonna keep it out here, covered in a natural freezer. And then we can boil the rest of this up with another collection later or tomorrow. We started 5 minutes ago and it was 40 degrees. Now it's up to 100, so it's doing pretty good. Again, we'll come back and check on it. It should be boiling here within the next half hour. It's been about 40 minutes. We haven't gone down too much, but that's all right. Got daylight. It's now 5:30. It's been 3 hours, and we're probably down to about 2 gallons left, so it's getting there. All right, so about 4.5 hours later, I've got the syrup down to about half of this pot size. Other things that you're gonna need: a small little food grade funnel here, and this is what's gonna be used actually at the end when we actually pour it into the mason jar. As you can see, it's gonna fit right over the top, and you'll put a little bit of this cheese strainer over the top. And I'm gonna pour it right in here and strain it. Every time you pour and pour, so it's strained and it's clean. Little bits of, you know, the tree and other stuff has gotten on this since it's been coming through. So we're just gonna strain out to keep it as clean as possible. And you can see that's why we strain it. Collect that little bit of stuff. Now we're getting it back up to temperature. We're gonna stop boiling when it reaches 219 degrees Fahrenheit and it's got a good rich texture and consistency. And I'll kind of show you that. I've got a food grade thermometer here, which I use. And this thing's really awesome, so we can actually see exactly what temperature it is. So we're gonna get it up to temperature. It's gonna have to boil down to about maybe a third of what it is right now, probably even a little bit more, and then we'll be done. Then we'll come over here to our jars, which we'll already make sure are clean, and get this poured into it using the cheesecloth, and make sure that this thing gets sealed up really nice and tight while it's still burning hot. This way it'll actually pop down and it'll lock it and seal itself in, and this way it'll be shelf preservable for an infinite amount of time until you actually open it and then use it, and then you just put it in the fridge. All right, so here we are in the final stages of the boil. You can see when it starts foaming like this, or bubbling pretty good. It's getting pretty close, and you can kind of start telling as it sloshes in there too. You just see it. But the real way to know for sure is here with the thermometer. There it is, 219. And it seems like it's pretty much done, because as you pull it off here, it's got that great color. Hell yeah. The final test that I do is I like to just pick up a little bit. Of course, this is like crack. It tastes so freaking good. It's still gonna look pretty watery because real maple syrup like this, not the fake stuff, is actually pretty loose, but you can blow on it and watch it thicken up in the spoon. You can see it kind of slow down. Oh, that tastes so good. And now we're gonna get it back up to temperature real quick and pour it in there boiling hot, and then cap it up and it should pop. All right, now it's back up to temperature. Let's get this stuff jarred up. We're gonna let those bubbles simmer down here. And look at that great color. There we go. Pouring it in. Hell yeah. All right, that's perfect. We produced 1 pint, it's 2 little half pints, and now I gotta get this nice and sealed up before it gets cool. You're gonna wanna wear a glove or something, because this is really hot right now. Disregard these dates, those are from last year, but this is really hot. We're gonna get this gone through and label these with the batch number, date, and signed it, so I'm real proud. It looks delicious, it always tastes real good. And again, I can't emphasize enough how tight you gotta get this. You really gotta wear like some rubber gloves and get a rubber like kitchenware helper or something, so you can squeeze this thing as tight as possible, because you need this to seal up, because if it doesn't pop down and lock in that seal, this stuff will go bad and you can't keep it out on your shelf. So you want to keep it on your shelf at first until it's time to actually use it, and then you'll refrigerate it. So make sure you get that real tight seal on there, and when it's done it'll actually pop and suck that top down. So we'll come back later when it's done that. Also common sense, but make sure you're cleaning out thoroughly your pots and everything that you use at the end here, so we have nice sanitary clean stuff to make our next batch. I actually just heard this one pop, and you can kind of see that it's low. See how you push on it now and it doesn't rebound back up? This one hasn't popped yet. As a point of reference for you guys, it's only been about 15 minutes, so this is still really hot. I can barely even hold that. So we're still waiting on this guy to pop. but it looks like it's gonna happen. And that's it. They both popped, they're sealed, and here's a comparison from the end of last season. Look how dark the syrup will actually get as the season goes on. It's light, much more light color and grade at the beginning of the season, still the beginning of, or end of February. By the end of March, it's gonna look much darker and richer. Still tastes delicious though. Thanks for watching. Also, for your reference, the entire process from collecting the sap to boiling it to finishing this all out took about 6 hours, so you really need a lot of time.